Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second podcast of 2023. And today we're going to be talking about something that's very close to my heart, and I know it's close to the hearts of my two guests as well. We're going to be doing a reflecting session on International Women's Day. I'm joined today by Claire and Adriana, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Claire.
Hi, Samaya. Thanks so much for inviting me to the podcast. My name is Claire Goley. I'm a sector director in the UK country unit, and I've been at Computer Centre for quite some time, but always in a sales role. So I've been around this part of the business for a while, and I now lead a fantastic group of people in the enterprise and industry sector.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Claire. Adriana.
Hi, Samaya. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about taking part in this podcast. My name is Adriana Mills, and I'm the product marketing lead for Workplace. I work for the group development, and I also have been in Computer Centre for a long time. I worked in various functions, from the technical resource where I started, to sales enablement, to service management, and now in marketing, working on products. So I'm really glad to be here and hopefully sharing interesting views and also learning from both of you.
Thank you so much. I feel like a newbie. You guys have been here a lot longer than me.
Don't add up the
I know.
years together. It won't be a good thing for me and Adriana.
But I
Yeah.
mean, it's quite interesting. For someone who hasn't been here that long, I see the amazing work we do around International Women's Day every year. And I just wanted to kind of reflect on the most recent one. I know it was in March, but I think it's a really good time to actually reflect back on everything that's been done. And I'm really interested in hearing what your views are, Claire. We'll come to you first. How did you find International Women's Day, and what does it mean to you?
So I love the way that we celebrate the day as an organisation. It's clearly linked to our diversity and inclusion drive to make Computer Centre a inclusive company to work for and to be in. So I love that we use that time to reflect and spend celebrating women, whether that's women in our organisation or women outside of the organisation. I think for me, at a personal level, it does a number of different things. It certainly uplifts me. It makes me feel re-energized as a female. It makes me pause for thought, and it gives me access to different stories in that period of time that maybe I wouldn't have sought out myself, if I'm being honest, and I can learn and listen to other people's experiences and some of the achievements that they've had. And I find that really, really inspiring, and it gives me an added drive to continue in my role and to continue to kind of be the best that I can in my role. And almost in a weird way, kind of pay homage to those people that have kind of broken down some of those boundaries or kind of got into parts of IT, especially that isn't typically dominated by a female presence. The other piece it does to me at personal level is inspires me, but also gives me a drive when I think about the continued struggles that women have across the world. And I think the most poignant element that resonates with me, I'm the mum of an 11-year-old daughter, is that there are hundreds of millions of girls or young women that do not have access to education. And that is exceptionally troubling because, in my view, when you don't have access to education, you become extremely vulnerable. and that vulnerability of women, girls, still exists. And I think that International Women's Day is one measure that allows that brings that more visible to us. It brings that challenge, and it surfaces for both men and women in terms of a huge problem statement that we've got to tackle. So there's many different examples, but it's the educational piece that that, in my view, is exceptionally troubling. And I think that International Women's Day shines an exceptionally bright light on some of those issues that we still clearly haven't solved as a society, as a group of people, both men and women. So it's a reminder, you know, it's a very strong, poignant, important reminder that there's a huge amount more work to do, and getting everybody's focus on it and attention on it is exceptionally important. And one of the things at International Women's Day is to do just that. So I'm exceptionally grateful for it. And you know, it's something that's happened for a long time, and long may it continue, in order that we can start to tackle some of these really important problems.
That's so inspiring to hear that, and I completely agree with all levels of what you just said, especially the education piece. There are so many young girls around the world that are denied, access to basic education, right? And that I think in turn, from a well-being perspective, can really have a negative impact on women's
Yeah,
mental health.
yeah.
Um, so for me, it's so important. That education piece is so, so vital and very, very important. But you've been here, a number of years. Have you seen International Women's Day grow and develop over the years?
Yes, I have. And if you do a little bit of research, International Women's Day has been around since 1908, 1911. Wasn't called that then. It was only when the United Nations made it a thing, an official thing, in the early 70s, I believe. But certainly, my memory of us committing to celebrating the day and recognizing the day. I can't think when Computer Centre started to do it, but I can always remember it happening, which is a good thing in my view. And I love the way that we create in very colourful way, lots of different mediums that we can consume in bite-sized chunks, or we can consume at a time that it suits us, or we can consume it on the go. I love the fact that we've become quite enabled in the way that we broadcast and that we share stories about those inspiring women and some of those kind of key problems I talked about earlier. So I think it's been around me. I feel as though I can look forward to the dates if it's a working day at Computer Centre, and I'm keenly interested to, this year, as I have been in other years, to see what I can do to kind of get involved, how I can kind of support the day, but actually paying respect to the women and the men in our organisation that have taken the time to share their stories and their thoughts and their beliefs about how we can continue to make sure that we have equitable groups for our women to, to kind of drive and thrive with their careers at Computer Centre.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Claire. Arjana, over to you. What does reflecting back on, the recent International Women's Day, what does it mean to you, and why did you get involved?
I think Claire beautifully put in, and I agree with her points 100%. I think for me is International Women's Day is a very important time, because we should celebrate and highlight all the achievements that we made. But at the same time, I feel that we have a long way to go, and then that's so important to carry on and do the things that we're doing, and giving the opportunity to having others to talk about their own experience. Because from my perspective is, I always do better and improve myself when I listen to other stories, and at the same time that I like to listen to, the challenge that people experience, maybe how they were marginalized, or when they encounter obstacles, how they achieve how they achieved success, how they overcame, like, the struggles that they had. And I think I am now in a situation where I can give back, and that's why I try and participate and help others to listen to my stories as well. I think that's the best when we talk about enabling other people or educating other people, is all about having conversations and sharing experience. So for me, we should always celebrate, the positive aspects of the greatest achievements, but also acknowledge that we have a long way to go, and how can we help it as computer center, or as an individual, or as a mother, auntie, friend. It's having that time to exchange ideas and knowledge. And I think that's, for me, is where I improve as well as an individual, because that gives me confidence. And I think this date, and we have extended it to not just to talk about day, because it's not about a day, it's the whole year, like it's every day, is every hour. How can I be confident enough to be out there and improve myself and improve others? So that's for me, in addition to what you guys just mentioned.
So just
Yeah,
on that, Samaya, I was just thinking when Adriana was talking, when you talked about the word confidence, and I link confidence to well-being. I think there is a link there. The more
absolutely.
confident I
Yeah.
feel, the more, I feel positive about myself.
Happier.
Whether it be an
Yeah.
image of myself, or happier about where I'm going and the life that I've kind of built around me. And there is a link there, and a really important element of that is confidence. So I think Adriana, when you mentioned that really resonated with me, especially because I feel low when I'm not feeling particularly confident about things. So I think that's a really good point to draw out.
Absolutely. And I think just on that, Adriana, as you were speaking, what came to my mind was I feel at my most confident and at my most resilient when I have the support of other female colleagues or other females in my life. I've always been a true believer in lifting each other up,
Mm.
really having each other's back. So absolutely, confidence is something that can make someone, and it can also unfortunately break someone as well. I thank you both so much for that, because that's really, really insightful, and I completely resonate with everything you've both said. But as you were both speaking, somewhere in my mind, I remember hearing someone saying or reading somewhere that one day, we won't have to have an International Women's Day. What do you think about that?
I think I think we touched a little bit. I think we have a long way to go. I think
Yeah,
we still need to support each other. And I think I have witnessed when we all come together, um, we can really make a difference, and we can empower each other. And if I look at someone saying, oh wow, that person achieved that, I can do that as well. Or open doors and open our minds to say, like, yes, I can see that's possible, I'm gonna try. And I think we we still needed to have that courage, be brave enough to do that. And I'm, you know, should I go for that position? And you read the job description, then you think like, oh, I'm not ticking all the boxes, but you have the experience, go for it. And when you start seeing others doing that, you kind of like want to do it. That's one aspect. But the other aspect is there are so many parts of the world that still need that push, that,
They need reminding, don't they?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So we need to keep reminding ourselves that we're still achieving it. We're still on a big journey, and hopefully that would be amazing when we stop celebrating it and just be part of history. But in my view, we need to carry on.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Adriana. I think you talk about reminding, and I would add that we need to continue to challenge as well, because there are some very deep-rooted structural systems that are hugely preventative towards women. I touched on the educational piece before, but there's many others as well. So it's feeling, galvanized and connected in order that we can positively challenge some of those social norms that do exclude women from having any level of equality. But actually, what I really liked about this International Women's Day theme was the equity debate. And I'm maybe not going into it now on this podcast in terms of equality and the difference between equity, but I almost took it from the fact that it felt as though we were maturing sufficiently enough to now start talking about equity as well as equality. And I thought to myself, goodness me, that feels like progress, that we're putting that on the table for debate and to challenge each other's thinking around, what is it to have an equitable position? Because equality won't give you that per se. It's not a default. Equity isn't a default of equality. It's something different in my head, in my mind. It's another level. It's another important layer beyond having equality and working in environments that promote equality. I think it's recognizing still, though, that equity is hugely important, and I feel as though we're ready now to go that next step. But I can't deny, I certainly wouldn't challenge Adriano. I think there's an enormously long way to go, a huge long way to go. So these are small steps, but it certainly feels as though, to me, and I'm not being pessimistic at all, but there is an exceptionally long way and a lot of things that we still need to achieve. And I don't think that we will do that or accelerate that unless we challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not being pessimistic at all. I think you're being more realistic.
Yeah.
And tiny steps, you know, will lead to bigger things. There's no point in trying to create huge change when we're not ready for it. When, I'm not just talking
Mhm.
about computer center, but maybe society isn't ready for it. So
Mhm.
little steps. But just on the point of little steps, I think one of the fantastic things that we have here at Computer Center are our EIGs,
Yeah.
which, you're part of. And Claire, I know you're part of the gender arm of our EIG.
Mm.
So can you tell us
Mhm.
a little bit more about that? And obviously, the progress that we have is because of these EIGs and people like yourself and Adriana really pushing boundaries and really pushing these um, subjects. So can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more
Yeah.
about what you do?
Yeah, of course. It's I guess the first thing to say about an employee impact group is that it's a framework, and there are many, and the more, in my view, the better, because it's about connecting employees at Computer Centre. It's a grand statement, but for a common cause, where you feel, very driven by a particular cause that's important to you and resonates with you. And the gender impact group is no different to any of the other impact groups in that it's trying to bring that people together. But this specific group has the aim of driving improvement in our gender balance across Computer Centre. And that is a big job, you could argue, but it's something that we really wanted to do, and it's quite in its infancy still, I would say. But we do have the foundations of that framework now in place, and we do have leads and co-leads, etc. But there's four activity pillars. And they are strong networks, help educate, cultivate talent, and external impact. So still taking the premise and the best practice created by the Ethnicity Employee Impact Group. And it's kind of building upon that, but making sure that it's pointed very clearly to gender diversity in order that we can make sure that we are solving and challenging any gender imbalance that exists within Computer Centre. So a really positive group of people, really wanting to build networks and educate others, cultivate the talent that we have, grow the talent that we have, and make sure that Computer Centre are facing off into our industry and other industries and having an impact there as well. So we become known as the champions of making sure that we are hugely inclusive of every gender that we could possibly attract into the IT industry and into our industry as well, and make sure that everybody is nurtured and everybody has an opportunity to thrive in this organisation, but also to drive their careers in the direction in which is right for them.
And you absolutely have been making an impact, like 110% you have.
Oh, that's good. Well, hopefully there's a lot more to come, because it
Yeah,
feels as though we're still
absolutely.
learning and growing and nurturing and developing this particular EIG. But yeah, I'm very, 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 as you can tell, I'm very, very excited about it.
Um, Adriana, have you felt that since joining the Gender EIG, it's changed you or given you a different sort of view on life or work at all?
I'm a newbie with with this platform, this framework. However, I've been like listening to different groups in Compete Center, and I have contributed with the diversity podcasts and webinars and so on. And I think, yes, I think it's opening doors to talk more about it. I think that's why I'm so excited to join Lizzie and Claire and the others in the team as well, because I think by sharing, knowledge and information and expertise can create such a positive impact, and shorten that journey to equality and equity if we all know more about each other's struggles or achievements. And there is always a balance. It's that learning, continuously learning about how to face life. I think that's my view. And yes, it's positive. I think Computer Center is doing more. We are doing more. We should be doing even more. But I that's why I think has been positive to me, because gave me, let's go back to courage, the confidence to actually say, I want to be part of it. I want to start, helping others, sharing, or do whatever is needed to improve even more what we're doing.
Absolutely. So you've just touched on, joining the EIG and wanting to make a difference. If there was someone listening to this podcast now and they've been inspired by what you've been saying, how can they get involved?
So we're always looking for new people to be involved. It's definitely a case of the more the better, and the more the merrier. There is a place for everybody in the gender EIG, as there is in all of the EIGs. However, there are 4 of those quadrants, and I certainly have one particular quadrant that I'm the co-lead on with Lizzie. But for anybody that wants to learn more, just simply learn more about some of the events that we're planning, or to actively be involved, then a simple email to myself, to Lizzie Butler, or to Adriana, and then we will make sure that we respond, and that we kind of answer any queries or questions, or give you a good route into where you think that you would like to contribute to any one of those 4 pillars that I listed before. I think ultimately for me, in terms of the IG, Samaya, I think it's very important for Computer Centre to showcase our values to the external market, to our partners, to our customers. But I think also, more than anything, it's one measure, one active measure that the employees of this company can take, and that is to make sure that we are being inclusive of everybody. So it's an extremely driven set of individuals that want to drive the inclusivity, because if you feel included in what we do and you really feel part of this organization, I think it does untold good for everybody's well-being, to not be included. If you think of the reverse of that, to feel like you're excluded, to feel that you're not part of something, and this is the career that you've chosen, or the career that you found yourself in for a period of time. Exclusion is a terrible, terrible thing, and it creates such devastating effects on every individual's well-being, that I just love the fact that inclusivity is at the core of what we're trying to do in all of the impact groups. And I think that's something really, unless you want to exclude yourself from something, then obviously clearly you have the agency to do it. But it's that feeling when you've not invited in, it's that feeling of being excluded. That's the thing that drives me. And I certainly say, for the people in my sector, this is, at the core of our reason, our vision, it is about inclusivity. We are a really inclusive sector, as are all the others, but we take good measures on a regular basis to check that that's the values that we are living by, and that we are promoting.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. And I truly believe that inclusivity builds resilience. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, International Women's Day is always reminding myself personally, from a personal point of view, of all of these women who are so resilient, who have overcome adversity, who
Mm-hmm.
have, who are currently still living lives that, we can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. If you feel you're included in the bigger picture,
Yeah.
as it were, then it really helps you build resilience. And
Mm-hmm.
again,
Mm-hmm.
going back to confidence,
Yeah.
and linking that into how that affects your mental well-being as well. Absolutely agree with you on that. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you both. It's been so inspiring, and I always love hearing about why people choose to do things and join, EIGs or networks outside of their normal jobs, because it's a bit extra, isn't it? You have to do a little bit of
Yeah.
extra work, but it's so powerful when the whole piece comes together, and people with the same passion and the same beliefs come together. It can really create something so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. But I have a cheeky question for you both.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to know, as a woman, what would you tell your younger self? What piece of advice would you give your younger self if you had a time machine and you went back in time and you sat there face to face with your younger self?
Would you like to go, Adriana?
Shall I go first then? Okay. I I would tell myself to believe on what people are telling you, because I remember when when I started my career in the UK, and people would say like, "Oh, you're brave, you you do well, or you, your work is great." I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it, because I had my own um, self-doubts in terms, like, this is my second language, am I really portraying myself as I should, or am I delivering to my best potential? And I knew at the time wasn't. So I knew deep down that I could do more, but at the same time, I wasn't listening to people. And if I could go back to say, to myself, like, you're doing well, you can do better, but just believe that you can do it. And I think it's maybe it's a subject for a different podcast, but that imposter syndrome, I felt for so many years, I was an imposter because was a little bit of me, but not 100% of me. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to say is that confidence, um, to believe that I could do, and at the same time accept that I was actually very resilient. And when we talk about resilience, I think about others, I actually, I had to readapt and do a lot, but I didn't have that self-belief. So if I could go back, that's what I would tell. Look in the mirror, see what you're achieving, and just keep going. And that's why I'm here, because I believe that, I'm not alone in the journey, and I'm not just talking about someone that's moving to a different country. I'm probably native, British or whatever you are listening to this podcast. You probably sometimes you have that feeling, and it's just understanding, your own
Self-worth, I would say.
self-worth.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah,
I
that's
absolutely resonate with that wholeheartedly, and you're definitely not alone. And I think I speak for quite a number of women, especially here at Computer Centre, that I've spoken to, and a lot feel that like that. And
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome, unfortunately, affects more women than it does men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I can absolutely hold my hand up to and say I still to this day have a lot of issues with self-belief,
Mm-hmm.
self-doubt, and imposter
Mm-hmm.
syndrome. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Claire, what about you?
Mine is almost identical to Adriana's, where I would tell myself, take more chances and back yourself. So very, very, very similar. When I think back to each kind of different stage of my career, which is now nearly 30 years at Computer Centre, when I think back and I think about the different steps I took, I was dragged into those. I was pulled by others. I never pushed myself into that stuff. I was having to be, like you said, Adrian, I was having to be convinced by others that I could do it, because I was my own worst critic. I would be the first and the quickest person to say, that can't be you, Claire, or the time's not right, or you're not knowledgeable enough, or nobody. But what if I'd had come to that conclusion a little bit sooner? What if I'd have come a little bit earlier and backed myself and put myself forward? And I have clearly no regrets. I'm very happy with the career that I've had, but I could have probably taken more chances a little bit earlier on. Could have pushed myself a little bit harder. And the one thing I wasn't doing was backing myself. I was cheerleading for everybody else, but I wasn't really kind of backing myself. And I am therefore very grateful to the people that did back me and did encourage me to to have a higher level of self-belief. Because when I do that, and a lot of my work is customer facing, and certainly used to be, people respond better to those that have that self-belief. It's very different to arrogance. But if you are your authentic self, then people will without question buy into you. And if you have a higher level of confidence and a higher level of self-worth, then I think you'll get a huge amount more response back from others. And I kind of look back on my schoolgirl, I look back on my early career self, and I would pull her over and have that very quiet but very firm word with her and say, back yourself, you're just as good, you can do it.
I think we can all agree that the theme of today's International Women's Day, believe in yourself.
100%.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you so much to both of you. It's been an absolute joy to sit here and speak to you. And hopefully this time next year, we'll have even more International Women's Day stories to tell. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.